The scar under my ribs still itches sometimes, especially when the weather turns cold. 7 years have passed, but it never really lets me forget. You're a perfect match. Then don't waste another second. Save my brother. Sorry, I've been really busy. I'm just glad you're okay. For 6 weeks, I couldn't even hold my own daughter. But my brother was alive. Dad was gone. Don't worry, I'll handle the estate. Your father changed his will. Nearly everything goes to Malachi. What?
I walked out of that office without raising my voice. The papers in my hand felt heavier than they should have. It wasn't just money I'd lost, it was my father's final promise. I sat in my car staring at the amended will. Dad had always believed in treating us equally. Deep down, I knew something about this document wasn't right. Instead of driving home, I headed straight to the one man who had managed my father's finances for decades, his trusted accountant, Ruben. The moment Ruben saw me, he could tell something was wrong. I asked him only one question: did my father ever tell you he wanted to change his will? He didn't answer immediately. Without saying a word, he opened an old drawer and carefully placed a worn folder on the desk between us. Inside were detailed notes from a meeting 8 months before my father died. As I read each line, my heart sank lower and lower. According to Ruben's notes, my father hadn't arrived with a new plan. Malachi had already prepared every document before they even walked into the office. The paperwork had already been drafted, already notarized, and all that remained was my father's signature. It didn't feel like a decision. It felt like a setup. Ruben had written down my father's exact words that day: "I don't remember agreeing to this, but Malachi says I did. I don't want to make trouble." Reading those words broke something inside me. My father hadn't changed his mind. He'd simply been too confused to know what was happening. Then I discovered something even more painful. My father had already been diagnosed with early cognitive decline, and none of us had been told. Malachi had been taking him to every medical appointment by himself, making sure no one else was there to ask difficult questions. Looking back, it all made sense. Every postponed family meeting. Every excuse. Every secret. The pieces were finally falling into place. I walked back to my car feeling betrayed in ways I couldn't even explain. This wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. As I sat there trying to clear my head, I suddenly remembered something the transplant coordinator had told me years earlier. The hospital still kept every record from my kidney donation, including the psychological evaluations. At that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I contacted the hospital and requested every record they still had from my kidney donation. A few days later, the file arrived. Most of it was medical paperwork I barely remembered. Then I reached the psychological evaluation, the interview every living donor goes through before surgery. As I read through the pages, one sentence stopped me cold. "I trust my brother more than anyone alive." Those were my own words. 7 years earlier, I had believed them with all my heart. Reading them now hurt more than the scar beneath my ribs. Not because they had been false then, but because they weren't true anymore. The evaluation wasn't enough to win a lawsuit. But it helped establish the kind of relationship we had before everything fell apart. My attorney gathered every piece of evidence we could find. Ruben's meeting notes. My father's medical records. The transplant evaluation. And finally, an independent forensic handwriting expert. The handwriting analyst spent days comparing signatures from bank records, business contracts, and old family documents with the signature on the codicil. His conclusion was impossible to ignore. The signature didn't look like that of a man confidently changing his will. It showed signs of hesitation and unnatural guidance, consistent with someone whose hand had been influenced while signing. When our attorney presented the evidence before the court, the judge didn't waste much time. The estate was immediately frozen while a full investigation began. For the first time since my father's funeral, I felt that the truth finally had a chance to be heard. Malachi wasn't happy. He left the courthouse without saying a single word to me. Before long, relatives began calling with stories about how he'd already started spending money that didn't legally belong to him. One cousin said he'd bought himself a brand new luxury boat. Another said he was acting as though the inheritance was already his. I didn't know how much of it was true. But one thing was becoming painfully clear. The brother I had risked my life to save was no longer the man I thought I knew. Some nights, usually around 3 a.m, I still wake up and instinctively place my hand over the scar beneath my ribs. The memories come back so clearly. The hospital lights. The doctors. The fear on everyone's faces. The moment I chose to give my brother a second chance at life. People often ask me the same question when they hear my story. If you knew then what you know now, would you still donate your kidney? My answer has never changed. Yes. Without hesitation. I would do it again. Not because my brother earned it. Not because he deserved it. But because saving someone's life says more about the person giving than the person receiving. I refuse to let his betrayal rewrite the kind of man I chose to be. What has changed is something else. I finally understand the difference between a gift and a debt. A gift is given freely. It isn't a lifetime contract. It doesn't require you to keep sacrificing yourself long after the gift has been received. And it certainly doesn't mean closing your eyes while someone continues taking what was never theirs. For years, I confused love with endless obligation. I thought forgiveness meant ignoring every warning sign. I thought loyalty meant accepting betrayal in silence. I was wrong. Love without boundaries eventually becomes permission for someone else to keep hurting you. The October trial is only weeks away. Maybe I'll recover my father's business. Maybe I won't. Maybe justice will return everything that was stolen. Or maybe it won't. But there's one thing no judge, no lawyer, and no inheritance can ever give or take away. I finally know exactly who my brother is. That truth has set me free in a way no amount of money ever could. The greatest inheritance my father unknowingly left me wasn't his business. It was the clarity to stop confusing love with surrender. Some gifts are priceless. And some lessons cost a kidney. If you've ever loved someone who betrayed your trust, remember this. Kindness is never weakness. But wisdom knows when it's finally time to stop writing blank checks for people who have already emptied your account. Because the most valuable thing you'll ever protect isn't your money. It's your peace.